Imagine suffering such terrible burns that your head fused to your chest. That's exactly what happened to our next guest, Jane Healy, when she was just 9 years old.
However, after lots of years, lots of operations and lots of love and support, Jane says that she now feels lucky that the tragedy has allowed her to appreciate every single day of her life since.
Well, she joins us now, and during this chat, with Jane's permission, we'll be showing images of the scars that she was left with, and which she says are now a vital and important part of her life. So it's lovely to see you.
It really is.
So let's go back to that day, August the 7th, 1969. You're 9 years old, and you're on a camping trip with family and friends.
Yes.
What happened?
Well, it wasn't a camping trip, actually. It was school holidays, and we were in the field behind the house we lived in. And Mum thought we were camping with friends, and there was nothing untoward, but another mother had given us a methylated spirit stove. And
you went to the chemist?
Well, yes. To
get the meds. At that age,
now
which now, of course, you wouldn't be sold it at that age, but times were very different.
It's amazing how that was allowed then.
Yeah.
What? So how did the accident happen?
Well, I was wearing clothes that weren't flame retardant in those days. They didn't have all that on clothing. So I suppose being children, we were messing around and throwing, and meths must have got onto my clothing. So when the older boy in the group threw the match on the methylated spirit stove, it sort of ignited, a bit like throwing brandy on food, you imagine. And of course, I think, thinking back on it, it must have been on my clothing and I ignited. Had an adult in there, possibly they would have rolled me in the tent or the sleeping bag, but unfortunately I ran against the field, down the field, and made things 10 times worse.
But I mean, luckily for a man that was there, that
wonderful,
put you
Mr.
out.
Glynn, saved my life. I don't think I'd be sitting here speaking to you. He ran across the field, he was in his garden working, and saw me on fire and grabbed, miraculously put it over my head and saved me losing, well, saving it being worse than it was.
When you rushed to your parents, you say the look on your father's face, you will never forget that.
Never forget that. My father had come home from work to all this horror. He just, ran up the field, and I'll never forget that look. That was hard, worse than the actual accident, actually. The horror of Dad's face and carrying me.
You were still smoking as they were carrying you, taking you to hospital.
Yeah,
and the smell,
the smell's horrific. Yeah, it never leaves you, the smell. But because we lived in the country, it would have been a long time for the ambulance to get there, so Dad drove me with a neighbour to Stockport Infirmary, who couldn't cope with it, actually, because it was so horrific. They had a police escort to Booth Hall in Manchester, and I was placed in the burns unit there.
And you suffered 75%?
75% of my body.
That's just incredible.
Well, it's incredible. It is incredible, and I know people survive with even more now, but in 1969 it was incredible to survive 75%, because they hadn't the knowledge that they've got now. They'd only got the war knowledge, really, from the guinea pigs, all that information, but now it's moved on so much. I mean, they used to have to turn me every 2 hours, which was horrific to keep. But now they have beds that turn.
Do it for you.
They do it. They don't have to touch the body. It just goes round, and they grow skin now, whereas they had to find places in my body.
And they couldn't really find anywhere.
Well, they did on my legs, with the only bit that wasn't burned. But unfortunately, because they were so deep, my burns, the donor areas became a scar where there wasn't a scar, if you can understand me. So to make my neck, they had to take all the layers of my skin. So I've ended up with a donor area scar as much as a keloid scar. But I've got a neck.
Well, that was you had to have a major operation to...
That was life-threatening, yeah. A poor mum and dad really, they brought me back from nearly dying. It was amazing that I pulled through, and they said I was a miracle. I was apparently very well fed, so that helped, and it helped me heal. Apparently I was a well looked after child. So
what were the days and weeks like? Sorry.
The beginning, or
at the beginning.
It was very sort of institutionalised feeling. You became, the burns unit was your world, beginning and everything, really, because everything revolved around the nurses, the doctors. It was very sad, really, because I had such a happy childhood. To be put in a burns unit suddenly at 9 was pretty
Well, when they took the
horrible.
bandages off,
At the beginning,
your
yes.
ears
Yeah, they
went
did.
with the bandages.
Yeah, my poor mum had to witness that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
oh my God, how awful.
they came to do my dressings and my ears came off. But I haven't missed them really. I mean, it would be nice sometimes.
Well,
You could still hear?
Oh, I got really good
everything?
hearing.
Yeah,
I'm sure.
yeah.
My dad always said that the fire must have helped me because I hear everything. So he
Bionic.
said, she listens to everything.
Well, there were months of recuperation.
Months, yeah. And the one after I went home for 6 weeks after the accident, I had to then go back for the neck, and that was life-threatening. I could have died because they
Yes.
had to open my throat to put the. I mean, Mr. Robinson, gosh, what an amazing man, my plastic surgeon. You know, to be brave enough to
Yes.
attempt that on a child must have been horrific for him as well.
Well, the most difficult time, you say, was when you went back to school.
Yeah.
And kids can be very cruel.
Oh, gosh, yes, yeah. I think I must have been quite a tough person anyway, because I learnt the art of fighting back and having the right answers, really.
But all the way through your life, because then you came down as a family, lived in London, and
right.
because you started
Yes.
afresh, you weren't the girl with the
It
burns,
was-
you were the girls from up
Absolutely.
north.
I wasn't labelled, and my dad was the local optician as well, where we came from. So I was Jack Warburton, his daughter. I was labelled as the optician's daughter that was burned. So for me, moving down south was the making of me, I think. It sort of set me free from the labelling, and I just became, yes, disfigured, but I was Jane from 14, disfigured.
Yeah. And you left home at 16.
I
got
did,
a great
yeah,
job.
yeah, I did. I was very independent. Mum and Dad, I overheard them worrying about me and
That's
saying,
quite young to leave home.
yeah, it was, but it was
Do
okay.
you think
I knew I had to
this made you
do
grow
it.
up much quicker?
Yes, I do, but I was also very afraid of becoming dependent on my parents. I was aware that I had to show Mum and Dad I could stand on my own 2 feet.